Welcome to the ruins of Raseborg Castle, one of the very first tourist attractions in Finland. Here, whilst life was harsh for all those who lived and worked in or outside the castle walls, piracy, executions, shipwrecks, sieges, trading, festivities, and court life all flourished. The guided tour you're about to hear consists of 3 parts. 1. The history of the castle. 2. The people of Raseborg. And 3. The past and present Raseborg. The tour has been funded by Västnyländska Kultursamfundet as an EU project. The history of the castle. Raseborg Castle, situated directly across the Gulf of Finland from the Hanseatic port of Reval, today's Tallinn, was probably founded in 1374 as a centre for trade and administration by a Swedish noble, Bo Jonsson Grip. In those days, Finland was a province of Sweden, known as Österland, the Eastern Land. There were only 3 other castles here, in Turku, Hämeenlinna, and Viborg. The castle of Raseborg was built by peasants on a small island in the inner archipelago over several decades, but landrise has left the ruins on a cliff high above the surrounding meadow. Raseborg was officially mentioned for the first time in 1378 in a letter signed by its first lord, Tord Röriksson Bonde. In the beginning, the castle only had a single outer wall linking 3 square towers, each 3 stories high. From the 1440s, the Lord High Steward of Sweden, Karl Knutsson Bonde, expanded the castle with living quarters on the inside and an outer castle yard on the northeast side of the building. Karl Knutsson, who reigned Sweden 3 times, lived in Raseborg between his 2nd and 3rd reign from 1465 to 67. Here he met a local girl, Kristina Abrahamsdotter, also known as the Rose of Raseborg. The couple had 2 children, but were only married on Karl's deathbed, which makes Kristina the only Finnish queen of Sweden. The marriage was, however, soon annulled, and the family returned to Finland. Towards the end of the 15th century, a 3rd floor was built by Lars Axelsson Tott, who effectively doubled the volume of the castle with the addition of the south wing, the round tower, and the south and western outer fortifications. The inner walls of the castle yard and the whole eastern front wall were clad in brick. During its heyday, more than 70 people lived in the castle. Raseborg Castle lost its importance when the Swedish king Gustavus Vasa seized power in 1521, and Ekenäs became the administrative centre of the region in 1528. The landrise made it harder for the larger vessels to sail upstream to the castle. When Helsinki was founded in 1550, within 3 years the castle was abandoned and its functions relocated to the new town. Raseborg Castle stood derelict for over 300 years. The people of Raseborg Castle. During the 179 years of its inhabitancy, Raseborg Castle boasted at least 17 lords and bailiffs. The first lord of the castle was Tord Röriksson Bonde, who governed it for 30 years. The German trade organization, the Hanseatic League, dominated the early 1400s with exotically named bailiffs such as Thomas van Witzen, Janneke Hampmoos, Kort Gartz, and Otto Pogvish. After the mid-15th century, the castle was controlled by its most renowned and wealthy men, the aforementioned Karl Knutsson Bonde and Lars Axelsson Tott. Only one lady has been in charge of the castle, Katarina Eriksdotter Nipertz, who ruled the castle following her husband's death in 1483, before the regent of Sweden, Sten Sture the Elder, took control 4 years later. From the 16th century we should mention Nils Eskilsson Banér, who was executed on Gallibacken or Gallows Hill just north of the castle in December 1520, when King Christian II settled accounts with his opponents after the bloodbath of Stockholm. The last lord of Raseborg, Erik Fleming, was removed by the king Gustavus Vasa for his harsh treatment of the peasantry. Raseborg is said to be haunted by Lars Axelsson's first wife, Katarina Johansdotter Wiffert. She was on her way with her son to meet her husband at Raseborg in the late autumn of 1468. Lars had been waiting for them since spring. The ongoing war had made the journey too dangerous. But there was no reunion. The lady and her son drowned in Raseborg's outer archipelago, together with 200 souls on board. It is said that in favorable conditions, when the new moon is 7 days old and the fog from the stream settles around the castle, one can see two figures rising from the mist. Katarina and her little boy are finally home. The past and present Raseborg. Raseborg Castle was abandoned in 1553 and left to decay. The first restoration began in 1890. Some walls had collapsed, most of the bricks had disintegrated, several floors were missing from the round tower, and a 30-meter-high spruce forest had overgrown the inner yard. 3 meters of soil and other debris were removed, walls were rebuilt, and the castle stood ready to welcome its first tourists in 1893. At the same time, Finland's oldest tourist lodge was opened opposite the castle with separate dormitories for men and women. Nowadays, it serves as a cafe called Slottsknechtens Stuga. 3 major waves of restoration were carried out during the 20th century, the last completed in 1988. It is impossible to restore the castle to its original condition, as no one knows exactly what it looked like. When the castle was built, water levels were roughly 2 meters higher than today, and the building could only be reached by sea. A double palisade consisting of 18,000 poles was built around the castle to protect it against pirates and other enemies. Only a few fragments of these poles still remain. A bridge connected the castle to a nearby island where livestock and horses were kept. You can still see the water gate on the right side of the bridge. The water cannot have been very clean, as the bailiff's privy was located outside the wall just round the corner in the north tower. Nowadays, only the narrow passage to this early toilet can be seen on the 2nd floor in the bailiff's residence. The courtyard looks bigger today than in the Middle Ages, since the inner walls have lost 2 of their original 3 floors. On either side of the north tower was a kitchen and a brewery. Large amounts of beer were brewed. A soldier's daily ration was around 8 liters. The women were restricted to 5 liters. Although ordinary table beer was not that strong, much stronger ale, so-called nobleman's beer, was also brewed for the festivities held in the south wing. In those days, this was divided into the Maiden's Hall for the women and the Great Hall for the men. During the 15th century, the majestic round tower rose to a full 6 stories. Of these, only 3 remain. Entering the dark room on the ground floor, you can see a grating above the cellar below. The chapel occupies the 2nd floor, and what is left of the 3rd floor serves now as an observation platform. There is a beautiful 300-meter-long forest track to Snappertuna Forngård called the Lover's Path. Nearby, you can also visit the wooden church of Snappertuna, built in the late 17th century. Excavations in 2008 revealed evidence of the ancient town of Tuna, a trading post near the castle. A whole range of cultural events takes place during the summer season at Raseborg, including summer theatre performances, concerts, tournaments and fairs. You can find more information online at www.raseborg.org.